Welcome to the 2022 Empath Summit. I'm Sara Lopez and I'm host of the summit. And I'm just so excited that Kelsey Voller is here. I'm just a huge fan of her work, and she's from Hawaii and she's a chronic illness strategist, and she helps people who are struggling with chronic health issues and complex health issues. And the last time I talked with her, I was just kind of at the beginning of my whole journey with health and healing. And one thing she said really stuck in my mind was that to completely not eat those foods that you should avoid. And now, Kelsey, every time I go to eat some ice cream or Cheetos or something, it's like your voice comes into my mind, and it's actually really helpful. So thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. So, Kelsey, maybe we can just start. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work you do and how that relates to helping people with anxiety?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, the work that I do comes from my experience with chronic illness, my experience dealing with a lot of these chronic, complex, tough symptoms that I just couldn't get answers for. I couldn't get resolution for. So what I do is I help people to listen to their body, to listen to the clues and the feedback that your body gives you that help you to know what you need if
Mhm.
you're listening carefully. So I teach people how to listen to their body, use that feedback from their body to really hone in on what do they need to prioritize? What are the root causes that are most problematic for them with what's going on with their health? Because cookie cutter programs will help a number of people, because just if you get enough people, you're going to hit enough of their root causes, right? And so you're going to get results. But why with a lot of the cookie cutter programs do you see like, oh, it helped this person and it didn't help that person? Well, what I've found is that it's really helpful if you can just get more specific to your unique body's needs. And to do that, you have to be able to listen to your body and get to know your body, to be able to pay attention to the signs that your body gives you, the clues it gives you about what it needs and what it's struggling with. So that's what I really do. Is it's almost like I'm an interpreter or a translator, right? And I'm teaching people how to speak the language that their body speaks, which is a very different language than what we normally speak. So that's how I help people with chronic illness issues. I don't have all the answers, but what I do is I help people to uncover these key clues that their body has right there for them so that they can make more effective decisions about what's right for their unique body's needs.
Mhm. So, could you tell us a little bit about what do you think are the root causes of anxiety?
Yeah, so anxiety is a really tricky one. And I think probably most people here can relate to this. With the hundreds of clients that I've worked with, I've never really seen two people with the exact same anxiety. Like you can definitely have overlap, right? Where you're like, oh yeah, you get chest tightness, I get chest tightness, or you get sweaty hands, I get sweaty hands, or when I'm really anxious, it's hard to sleep at night, or I wake up throughout the night. There's things that will overlap, but usually each person has a unique blend of symptoms that come together that we're going to group under the umbrella of anxiety, right? But why, and this is, I think, a really important question, why do people have different types of anxiety? Why isn't there one fix for anxiety? And one thing that I've learned through medical medium is that there's different root causes behind anxiety. So this is why it's important to get to know your body, to learn from your body's feedback so that you understand, what is my anxiety? What are the root causes behind my anxiety? Because even if I know a program or a protocol or a supplement or whatever, a food that really worked for someone else's anxiety, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be the answer for you, because you probably don't have the exact same recipe for anxiety as that person had. So with anxiety, there's three main root causes, and you want to understand which of those are most problematic for you, for your body. So that's a good place to start. So you don't want to start with going, well, what should I take? What should I be eating? What supplements are best for anxiety? You actually want to go more upstream and start with the question, what do I know about my anxiety? What's unique about my anxiety? What are the root causes that stand out for me with my anxiety? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's so true. I've worked with so many clients that are, myself included, the who has anxiety. It's that you want to reach and take that thing or get that one thing that you think will instantly solve it. Yeah, I love that. And you miss thinking about, well, what is the root? Because you don't address that, then you're not going to have any improvement.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's really important, especially for someone who has limited resources. Like, I think most of us have limited time and limited money, right? Like, those aren't unlimited resources. And if you're just shooting in the dark, going, oh, well, I heard that this worked for this person, or I saw this ad and they say that it works for everyone. I get nervous about those because you only have so much time and money, and dealing with anxiety, dealing with being really hypersensitive to your surroundings, and that affecting your ability to feel calm and peaceful in your body, that can be a really overwhelming feeling to deal with every day. So to me, it's like every day is so precious that if you're going to take action and if you're going to commit to doing something to help your anxiety, make sure that you're making really informed choices on what you're doing to intervene, what you're doing to support your body, and focusing on the root causes helps you to get there, I think, faster and more effectively. So the three main root causes with anxiety, and I'm going to explain these in more detail, but just to give an overview, the three main root causes are going to be toxic heavy metals, things like mercury, aluminum, copper. These are metals that when they get into the nervous system, when they get into the brain, when they get in where those electrical currents are going and trying to send messages in the brain, when you get a metal in there, it's almost like a shield, right? And it can mess with the messaging. So one of the root causes of chronic, ongoing, stubborn, debilitating anxiety is heavy metals. A second root cause is actually viral infections, usually long-standing viral infections that it's not like when you have the flu, right? And it's like it comes on and you definitely know you have a virus and then it goes away. It's a viral infection that is something you picked up maybe when you were a kid, when you were a teenager, maybe you had mono, um, maybe you had a flu bug or something like that, and you had food poisoning, something like that, and it just never, you were never the same afterwards, or, in the couple of months afterwards, other symptoms started popping up. So it's more of we call it like a low grade chronic viral infection, kind of like it's just lingering in your body. So that is the second root cause of anxiety. And how do viruses create anxiety in the body? Well, viruses, and not all viruses, but certain viruses, when they're hanging out in your body, they are consuming on those heavy metals. And when they consume those heavy metals like mercury and aluminum, they poop out. I'm just making it sound simple, but they essentially like poop out um, this poop, we'll call it a neurotoxin, that's really irritating to your nervous system. So, why does that matter? Well, think about if you go to a concert and there's really loud music to the point where you're way too close to it, you're covering your ears, that's irritating your nervous system, right? And when your nervous system is irritated like that, everything else is more easily irritating to you, right? If you're around a crying baby and the baby is crying all day, do you notice like your nerves getting, really sensitive to like, another noise or so, you're on edge. So when you have a viral issue in your body and that viral issue is irritating your nerves day in and day out, it's going to make you more sensitive to the other stressors in life that maybe you could tolerate better or wouldn't have such a huge impact on you if you had a calm nervous system. So let's say that your nervous system is normally at like in the green zone, right? But if you have this underlying irritation, irritating your nervous system all day and all night, then you're more in the yellow zone just to start with. And then when you get a stressor, right, that would bump you up normally from the green zone to the yellow zone, you're going from the yellow zone to the red zone, right, to where you're really dysregulated, where it's really impacting your ability to stay calm and peaceful. So, root cause number one would be toxic heavy metals interfering with the nerves in the nervous system, especially in the brain. Root cause number two would be a low-grade viral infection that could be kind of just sneaky and causing this low-lying irritation in your nervous system day in and day out. And then number three, of course, is going to be if there are major emotional events. But the tricky part about this, so if you have a major emotional event, let's say someone that you love passes away, or you go through a traumatic breakup, or you lose a beloved pet, it's absolutely normal to go through a phase of grieving, right? And that being really hard. That's normal. But if that continues for months and months and months, that's where it becomes abnormal, right? And so if you have short-term anxiety for a couple of weeks, a month, and you can definitely point it back to it's when this thing happened. I'm processing it, I'm working through it. It's getting easier over time as I process it. That's one thing. But the two root causes that I really want to focus on are the heavy metals and the viral issues. Because when you have these things already in your body, and let's say you're doing okay, maybe like low lying anxiety, but then you have a major emotional stressor come up. If you've already got one or two of these other root causes going on, that's when an issue that comes up can become overwhelming to the point of, I'm not feeling more safe over time. I'm not able to get over this. I'm not able to process and move on from this. Or sometimes clients will describe it as, yes, I had anxiety when this happened, but now I feel at peace with what happened, but I still feel this physical anxiety in my body. My body just feels like somebody turned on the anxious button, and I'm just always on high alert. I'm always, hypersensitive to everything that's happening around me. So that's why I think it's really important to look at these root causes, the toxic heavy metals and the viral load, because if you're that person who's going, I've done all this emotional work, I feel like I've addressed things, like, am I crazy? Am I just, what am I missing? I don't understand why my body is so hypersensitive and so reactive to my environment, to my emotional stressors, why I can't cope with them the way I used to. That's when you're going to want to look back and go, are these other two at play? Are there toxic heavy metals in my body that could be interfering with my brain activity? And is there a viral infection or maybe multiple viral infections going on that are keeping my nervous system really irritated and making it hard for me to actually like really calm down and soothe? So those are the top three root causes of anxiety that are really good to dig into when you're looking to really get to the root cause of it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing all that. One thing that comes up for me when I try to introduce the idea of someone might have a low-grade viral infection like Epstein-Barr virus is if they've never heard of it, or they've never heard of medical medium protocol. Sometimes it's just very difficult for people to accept that that may be happening to them, because it's not something that they could, it's not their fingers and it just goes away. And there's
Mhm.
not necessarily a test that they could take that shows, right, if they do have that low-grade viral infection, because it kind of hides. Is that something that you find working with people? that it takes a while to accept that that could be something that is a root cause?
Well, I think it's really important for anyone to be discerning, right? Like if
Mhm.
even if I'm saying this, like don't just believe me,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so many people saying so many things. The reason why I'm so confident in what I'm sharing is because the type of people that I work with are the super complex cases. So these are the people who've been to, 10 to 15 doctors who've been trying to heal for five, 5 or more years. Usually these people have been through the ringer, right? They've tried all the different protocols. They've tried, they've been to the best of the best. They've tried different pills, they've tried a lot by the time that I work with them. And so they'll tell me, I do a long intake form and they'll tell me everything that they've tried and what they noticed and how the symptoms have changed over time. And the thing that stands out to me is when we address it from a root cause perspective, that's where I hear people say it's gone. Not like we have to keep working on it, keep working on it, it's not like we have to manage it.
Mhm.
Eventually it's gone. It goes away and they'll say it's someone turned off the switch. It's no longer there. So if I was working with just like a random population of people who've never tried anything, I would be much, much more like, I'm probably hitting some of the right things, but
Mhm.
probably not that accurate. But when you're working with really complex people who have tried a ton of things already, like you have to get it really accurate in order for them to be like, it's gone. It's better. I don't have this anymore. The anxiety is not here anymore. So that's why I'm confident about what I'm saying, but I still think it's so important to be discerning and to question what anybody is telling you should do.
Mhm.
And that's why I point it back to listening to your body. So if someone, like, okay, so I'm saying look at yourself um from a root cause perspective and see, are there signs that a toxic heavy metal issue might be at play for you? Are there signs that a low grade viral issue might be going on in your body? That's going to be what you listen to. You're not really listening to me. I'm just kind of giving you some guidance, right? And then you're going back to your body to check it out and see if it's true for you. So, a big question that comes up at that point is how would you know if you have a chronic viral issue? How would you know if you have a toxic heavy metal issue? What kind of clues would you get from your body? What are the ways your body would be crying out saying, hey, this is bothering me. Hey, I'm struggling with this. So, what we could do is we could look at some of the clues. And I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of clues. So, I'll just give you a couple to think on. But let's go through a couple of the clues that your body might be giving you that suggest that your body is struggling with toxic heavy metals or your body is struggling with a chronic viral infection. So, just starting with the toxic heavy metal piece, how do you know if toxic heavy metals are an issue for you? You don't want to just believe what anybody tells you. I think that's a little bit careless for sure, especially in the day and age where we're on the internet, right? Like you can hear anything from anyone. Um, so what are ways that you can check in with your body and get actual evidence that would suggest, yeah, toxic heavy metals are an issue for me? I know in my journey, I really wanted there to be a test. I really wanted there to be like a really accurate test where I could get all these answers. Um, and through all of the research that I did, the only one that I could find that was really quite accurate was tissue samples, where they actually take like a chunk of you and see what's in there. And nobody's going to do that, right? Like, who
Mhm.
wants to have a chunk of you taken out? And it's only going to be accurate for that tissue as well, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's in my arm is not going to be the same as what's in my brain. It's not going to be the same as what's in my liver. Like, these different organs are going to hold different things. So, hair samples, urine samples, um, fecal samples, tissue samples. I mean, you can do all of these things to get some input. If they find something, it's probably there, right? Like, how can they
Mhm.
make that up? But in terms of them telling you the amounts, how much is in there, they're not highly accurate. So, that's one road you could go down to get some evidence. I myself did most of those things, trying to find some evidence. And for me, with the urine test that I did, it did show some high amounts of heavy metals coming out. So I knew that at least there were some. I didn't know how many, and I knew that the numbers were probably not that accurate because I did the testing
Mhm.
quite a few times. But there's other ways besides testing that can give you clues as to what's going on. So with heavy metals, you can also look at context. What heavy metals have you exposed yourself to over and over again? Because we know, it's like maybe there's not a test that tells you if you ate cheese, but if you ate cheese, right? Like you don't have
Right.
to have a test to know, like you can be like, yes,
Yeah.
I put that in my body, right?
Mhm.
If you cook with aluminum foil, aluminum is a heavy metal that's really hard for your body to process and get out of your body. So if you're cooking, let's say on a grill and you wrap the meat in aluminum foil, or you make a dish in the oven and you cover it with aluminum foil, or you wrap your potatoes in aluminum foil, um, you know that you've exposed yourself to a toxic heavy metal that you then consumed. I mean, it's not like you were chewing on aluminum, but small amounts are enough to irritate your nervous system. Your body is very sensitive to toxic heavy metals in tiny amounts. So you can look at, was I exposed to aluminum? Look at your exposure to aluminum foil. Another one would be mercury. Um, have you eaten tuna? Tuna has incredibly high levels of mercury. I remember one time when I was really sick, I went in for testing, and they did a ton of blood tests. And the night before, I had gone out and had sushi. This is before I knew any of this stuff. Um, I'd had sushi and it had tuna in it. And the next morning I went and did testing, and they called that the lab actually called me and they said, "Hey, your mercury levels were off the charts." And then they said, "Did you eat tuna recently?" And I'm like thinking, "No, I didn't." And I thought, "Oh, when I had the
Mm.
sushi." And they're like, "Oh, well then you're fine. Like the numbers will go down in a couple of days. You'll be fine." And that was it. They didn't say anything more. And I thought, that's really weird. And I looked more into it. Yeah, the mercury will get out of your bloodstream in a couple of days, but it's not that you pee all of that out. It sits in your tissue, and it goes deep into your tissue and then causes problems in there. So, did you eat canned tuna a lot as a kid, or um, just any large fish from the ocean, like swordfish, would be another a big source of mercury. So you want to look at context with heavy metals. Where have you been exposed to heavy metals? Did you ever take care of a fluorescent light bulb that broke? There's mercury inside there. And that small amount of mercury that's coming out is super toxic. I know this because I was a science teacher, right? And there's protocols in place for if a mercury thermometer would break, you would clear the building, because the
Mm.
small droplet of mercury is that toxic. So there's ways that you could get exposed to what seems like tiny amounts of heavy metals that are a really big deal for your nervous system in your body.
How about tap water? Would that not be
Yeah,
good?
so with tap water, especially with old pipes, I don't know if you've read, all of the concern with Flint, Michigan,
Mm.
when they were having issues with their water. Absolutely. Water can have high amounts of arsenic. It can have high amounts of copper, and like that's high amounts. Even medium or low amounts is going to eventually build up in your system. So, we have these modern luxuries like running water, which I'm super glad that we have that, right? But there's costs and benefits to it. And if you have copper pipes that are breaking down over time, that are corroding, you're going to be getting some of that in your tap water.
Mhm.
So drinking tap water, yeah, that's another source that you could be getting toxic heavy metals from. There's a lot of sources. So do a little bit of digging. Um, I ran a course I think about a year ago, where I gave them a whole list of the different ways that they could be exposed to different toxic heavy metals, and people were so just surprised at all when they started circling things. They're going, "Oh my gosh." I've actually been getting a ton of heavy metals in that I didn't think about it, but yeah, all of these things I've done, you know? So I think that's a good area to do some research and look at, what are the ways that I've been exposed to toxic heavy metals. Medical Medium talks about the different effects that toxic heavy metals have on the nervous system, on the body. Um, if you're having any of the, especially if you have multiple of these symptoms, it creates a stronger story or more strong evidence that heavy metals are probably at play. So, if there's a history in your family of schizophrenia, bipolar, um, anxiety, depression, and chronic anxiety, chronic depression, these would all suggest that toxic heavy metals are probably at play. But there's, like I said, there's a ton of other ways that your body could give you that feedback, but the list would be so long, we won't go into all of those. But so that's just the heavy metal piece. So, are heavy metals part of the issue for you? You're going to want to look into your exposures, and you want to look into the different ways that toxic heavy metals show up symptom wise when they start causing problems in the body. And the first book by Medical Medium, it has like an x-ray of a chest on the front, is a great book to look at, as well as Cleanse to Heal has some great information as well. So toxic heavy metals is the first one. And when toxic heavy metals is an issue, a lot of times what I'll see with clients is when they bring in the toxic, um, uh, the heavy metal detox smoothie, which is specifically to help your body purge out those toxic heavy metals. Those are the people who will tell me, hey, when I brought in the heavy metal detox smoothie, I noticed that my anxiety started coming down. I noticed that I was able to stay more calm. It's not like it's overnight usually for most people. It takes time to pull that stuff out. So they'll say, I'm noticing more calmness. I'm noticing I'm able to fall asleep a little bit faster. I'm noticing my my racing thoughts are starting to calm down a little bit more, it's a little easier to get over them, or pull away from the OCD thoughts, things like that. But the toxic heavy metals, one of the best ways to address that is with the detox smoothie. They have a heavy metal detox smoothie. And so that's also a really good experiment to just try that smoothie, which has bananas, wild blueberries, cilantro, orange juice, Atlantic dulse, spirulina, and barley grass juice powder in it, to try that smoothie and see how you feel in your body when you have that in for a while. And some people need to start with a small amount. Some people can do, a 32-ounce serving of it to start with, but that would also be another good way to talk with your body and see how your body feels when you bring in that support. The second root cause that I wanted to talk about would be the viral load. And this one is a little bit, I think, easier to pinpoint if it's going on, because there's just so many ways that your body will give you feedback if it's struggling with a chronic viral infection. If you're having any reproductive issues, meaning your periods are heavy, long, longer than 2 days, are not coming every 28 days, like very consistently. Maybe they're 25 days, maybe they're 30 days, but they're kind of all over the board. It's not like boom, boom, boom every month on the dot. If you're getting cramping with your period, that's not normal. If you're having, you know, any sort of like fibroids or cysts in your reproductive system, these are all ways that your body's saying, I'm struggling with a pathogen. I'm struggling with a bug. So if you have those issues, that's very suggestive of a viral issue in your body. If you're having thyroid problems, that's again very suggestive that you would have a viral issue in your body. If you've had any kind of autoimmune label given to you, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them are very suggestive of having a low-grade viral issue at play. So it's not that, when I say heavy metals and a viral issue could be at play for someone who's got a chronic anxiety issue, it's not that you just have to believe me and just go with that. Look at your body, look at your body's feedback, and look at your health history. Like, go back to your childhood. Did you have chronic ear infections? Did you have constipation as a kid? Did you, get an IBS diagnosis at some point? Did you have chronic headaches that, weren't going away? Did you have tummy aches, which can be a lot of times the way kids will talk about anxiety is they have just a tummy ache. Um, were you struggling with nightmares? Were you struggling with not being able to dream at night? Were you struggling with period issues? Did you struggle with acne? Um, these are all ways that your body was giving you feedback from the get-go if you were struggling with one of those root causes that I was talking about. Um, so look at your health history, not just from like this year, not from just right now, but go all the way back to your childhood. And I would just write it down. I would make a list of all the things that you went through health wise. And then you can kind of back up, zoom out, and go, what is the story here? Do I see a pattern? It's so interesting. I was just talking to a client the other day, and he's dealing with a lot of GI issues, which then, because your nervous system is very, there's a lot of nerve endings in your GI system, right? So your gut and your nervous system very intertwined. And so he's having a lot of gut issues, which is creating a lot of anxiety in his body, physical anxiety. There's emotional anxiety where you can say like, yeah, this thought, this issue, this person, like that's where the anxiety is. But then there's also just this looming anxiety where it's just constant, chronic, just you can't point to anything. You're just not feeling calm and peaceful in your body. And for him, he's got these GI issues, which comes back to heavy metals, viral load, all of that in the GI tract, that are leading to his nervous system being really irritable and easily kind of tipped off into that anxiety mode. And when he looked back at his history, way back in his childhood, he was having, strep throat on and on and on, and ended up getting his tonsils removed. And when they took out his tonsils, they said they were complete mush. Your tonsils are part of your lymphatic system. They're part of your immune system's way to fight infection. And they were mush as a child, which says they were being attacked pretty intensely, right? And he's like, yeah, and they took out my tonsils and I still had these throat infections, right? And you think about your throat goes down to your GI tract, right? So it just was like this natural progression for him. And as his GI tract calmed down, his anxiety also started to calm down. So that's why I say like every person is so unique. There could, I've worked with people where they bring in the detox smoothie, the heavy metal detox smoothie for toxic heavy metals, and that alone helps calm them. Then there's other people where they need to do some emotional work. They also need to do the detox smoothie. They also need to address a viral load. And so it's finding out like what is your combination, what's going on at a root cause level, and that can really guide you in addressing the anxiety. So don't necessarily just follow a cookie cutter plan. Don't just do what everybody else is saying works. Really look at what evidence you have from your body, the feedback you're getting from your body, and use that to guide you, because that's going to be the most specific to your needs if you're looking at your body's feedback, your body's guidance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And it all just resonates with me. I struggled with anxiety and really intense panic attacks growing up. And really, it was when I started to figure out that the root cause was toxic heavy metals and low-grade Epstein-Barr virus. And really, it took just, talking to my mom a little bit. I never knew that I had two Epstein-Barr virus illnesses that as a child, I had no idea. And my mom told me that I did. So, there's one piece. And of course, with heavy metals, just, the aluminum foil, the, cooking ware that I use, all that. I think they are just so hard to avoid. But yeah, just really simple things like the heavy metal detox smoothie personally just made such a huge difference.
Yeah.
And just sometimes I think it's a matter of sticking with it and being consistent and just drinking your smoothie
Yeah.
every single day. But I mean, even a little girl that I help raise loves the heavy metal detox smoothie and will drink it even though it's green. So, and she doesn't like other things. I feel like it does taste quite good. And
Hmm.
I know a lot of people, the spirulina or garlic grass juice powder, you can kind of work up and not use a lot in the beginning. I don't know if you find that that's helpful for people in the very beginning.
Yeah. I think it's really important, again, to just come back to listening to your body. And if you do like a full serving and you're like, whoo, I'm getting some feedback that was like
Mhm.
intense for me. Cool that you got feedback. Cool that it's doing something in your body, but maybe scale back and try half that amount. And if you're sensitive to the taste of it, like the green powders, the barley grass juice powder and the spirulina, you can get those in capsule form, and just take them with your smoothie.
Mhm.
And you can have an even better tasting smoothie if you want to do it that way, because you can get them both in together. Um, but I do think what you're saying is really important, which is you have to stick with it for a while too. The consistency, that's why it's like, if you're going to invest the time and the effort and the money into supporting your body in resolving anxiety, make sure that you're listening to your body's feedback and you feel pretty confident. Like, yeah, I have a lot of evidence that toxic heavy metals are an issue for me. I have evidence that there's a viral issue going on for me, just like you did.
Mhm.
And because it does take a while to get enough of that out for your body to feel relief, right? Like if you had stepped in a cactus and you've got thorns all over, like you fall into a cactus, you got thorns all over in your arm. When you pull out one thorn, are you going to be like, yeah, I feel better? No, right? You're like, this whole area is still super irritated, right? So you have to get enough of those thorns out before you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm feeling relief. I'm feeling better. So to think that you can get it overnight is a very Western medicine kind of
Yeah.
idea, right? Because with pharmaceuticals, you can get an overnight fix, but we know it's not really addressing the root cause most of the time. So give yourself the time to get more of those thorns out, because it does take time and it takes time for the nervous system to calm down fully. The one thing that I forgot to say, Sarah, that I think is really important is I talked about one thing that you can do to check in on toxic heavy metals, doing the heavy metal detox smoothie with a low grade viral issue. The cheapest, easiest experiment to do is to just avoid the foods that feed or help these viruses to thrive in your body. So the top 5 foods that I would consider avoiding if I thought I had a low grade viral issue. Number 1 would be eggs. Number 2 would be dairy, gluten, corn, soy. Those would be my top 5 that I would
Mhm.
avoid. And what I've seen, just feedback from my clients, has been they take out one of them, maybe they feel better, but
Yeah.
usually not until they get all 5 of those out do they feel substantially better. And they could even have 4 of them out and they don't feel better. It's
Mm.
like, got to get enough of that food source out to actually impact the virus, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
think about if there was a bug problem in your house and you're like, well, I removed 90% of the food that they eat, but there's still 10%. Like, they're going to be fine. They can just eat on that 10%, right? So those top 5 foods, eggs, dairy, gluten, corn, soy, that's a really good place to start in terms of removing foods that are going to make it easy for the virus to cause problems in your body. And that's a super low cost option. You're not buying anything, right? You're just avoiding the foods. And there's a lot of other foods that you can focus on, which would be fresh whole fruits, fresh whole vegetables, leafy greens, salads, potatoes, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, squash. There's a lot of options in whole food form that you can get all of your needs met while also avoiding the foods that help a viral issue to cause problems.
Thanks. I mean, it's really great to know that these healing foods really can calm our nervous system. I think a lot of people just don't make that connection. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that I hear a lot, and I totally get it, because I remember when I had anxiety, I remember when I had insomnia, I remember when I had all these symptoms, and I remember just looking for like, what do I need to add? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do I need to take? And and I think that totally, that's a good question to ask, but I don't think it's the only question to ask. It's what do I need to add, but also what do I need to remove? Both of those components are really important. Um, and when you focus on root causes, it helps you to answer those questions, right? If I've got heavy metals going on, what do I need to add? Heavy metal detox smoothie. What do I need to remove? Aluminum, cast iron pans, like these sources that are, tuna, um, sources that you don't want to bring in. And then if there's a viral issue, okay, what do I need to take away? Eggs, dairy, gluten, corn, soy, anything genetically modified. What do I want to add? I want to add more healing foods, more helpful foods like fresh whole fruits, vegetables. White potatoes are really great for viral issues. Um, and I'm just saying these generally, right? There's so many unique combinations for people. If someone's got a major blood sugar issue, like we would have to tweak that a little bit, right? Because they might be like, well, I can't do a glass of orange juice, like that will totally throw off my blood sugar. Or anyway, I'm just saying these are like basics to consider, but really, working with a great practitioner and getting really specific to your body's needs helps you to create a protocol, or helps you to put together a prioritized list of action steps that are going to really meet your needs, not just meet the needs of most people in the general public.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in your case, you mentioned that you had anxiety. How long, and I know a lot of people will ask, how long might it take to heal anxiety, or how long did it take for you?
I People always ask that question, and
Yeah,
I
they
always wanted to
do.
know the answer too, because it's like you're just like gripping to it. You're like, I just need to know how
I
long until I can
know.
get over this. And I've seen it be such a vastly different number for everybody that
Mm,
I don't find it helpful for me to say, here's what it took for me.
no.
It's because it's going to depend on how quickly you take action,
Mhm.
how consistent you are with your action, how deep, your issues are.
Yeah.
That all is going to change the amount of time that it takes. So I can tell you mine, but it's not going to serve anyone really well. I've seen people have really quick results within weeks. I've seen people where it takes, upwards of a year or two in their journey. And I'm not saying like to see any results, but
Yeah.
to get to the point where they're like, all right, I'm on the other side of this. So, but that's what I would keep in mind is like, how consistent are you being? And how disciplined are you being with what you're implementing, and are you doing the right things? Like, are you doing the things that your body needs the most help with? Are you
Yeah.
prioritizing the right priorities?
Mhm. What would you say to someone who's getting really frustrated because they're feeling better and then they have a period where they have a lot of increased anxiety? It's just
Yeah.
it's going up and down and not kind of getting better.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So one of the things I would keep in mind is that it gets used a lot, this thing, but healing isn't linear,
Yeah.
for sure, right? Like things don't just like get better, 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 better. Although I wish it worked that way, it'd be so much
Mhm.
easier. Um, but I think this is where I would still point back to, if you're noticing that, that's a good time to check in with your body and go, what's been different lately?
Mm,
Have I been as consistent with my daily routine? Have I changed in my sleep pattern? Have I had more stressors? Am I using more caffeine in my life? Am I using more high fat foods? And because usually when you get stressed, those things will come up.
yeah.
You're going to want to look for what's been different lately. Why
Mm,
is why is this change happening? And sometimes you can't figure it out. That totally happens because the human body is super complex. Um, but I think that's a great first step, is when something feels off or different or hard, just be like, you know what? This is a good pit stop, for me to stop
mhm.
and go, what's different? What symptoms have improved? Which symptoms are feeling a little more intense right now? And in that, in that context, I mean, I could talk about how to do that in a whole course, which I
Yeah.
am.
Mhm.
But pausing and looking at it is going to help give you more feedback.
Mhm.
So I would say, like, getting discouraged is totally understandable. It's very human, but choosing to just learn from the bumps is going to benefit you in understanding your body and putting more tools in your tool belt for how to navigate your body over time.
Mm. Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit more? You said you're doing a course on this, or can you tell me more about your work and how people could find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at my website. It's kelseyvollerhealth.com. You can find me on Instagram at Kelsey Voller Health. And yes, so I've run courses in the past, and I love doing it. I'm a formerly, trained teacher, and then went back to grad school when I was really sick, trying to figure out what was going on with my body when doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with me. So I love teaching people, and I love especially teaching people how to understand and talk with their bodies, because then you're so empowered, where it's not like you're just going to a practitioner to give you all the answers. You're not like, just you tell me what to do, and then I'm just going to I'll just on faith just believe everything you say. No, you're actually like, you're in it. You're understanding. You're saying, here's what I'm noticing for my body. Here's the feedback I got. Here's what I'm thinking we should do, because you have that skill set of listening to your body. So that's a course that I'll have coming up later this year, and you can get on the wait list for that course on my website.
Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being part of the Empath Summit, and thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us.
Absolutely. It's been so fun to be here. Thank
It
you.
really has. Thank you, Kelsey.